My name is Meredith Hayes. I'm 54. And this morning, I'm still wearing the blush pink dress I bought to wear to my daughter's wedding. Not because I went, because I didn't. The call came a week before the ceremony. Mom, I think it's better if you don't come. No fight, no tears, just that. Just silence swallowing the space between us. Before I can continue my story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I always wonder who's out there in the quiet with me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. When you raise a child alone, you build your world around them like scaffolding. You become a calendar, a chauffeur, a tooth fairy, a bedtime jazz singer. My daughter, Kara, her name always felt like air in my mouth, was everything. We lived in a little bungalow in Beaverton, Oregon, pancakes every Saturday, matching pajamas on Fridays. We couldn't afford much, but she never knew that. My world was small and tender and just big enough to keep her safe. I remember when she brought Dan home, soft-spoken, decent, polite, the kind of man who said yes, ma'am, without irony. When they got engaged, I cried happy tears. I bought a notebook from Powell's Books and filled it with vendor ideas, fabric swatches, even fonts for invites. Just enough to help, not enough to hover. The dress I bought was soft chiffon, warm like a sunrise. I practiced smiling in the mirror, the kind of smile I hoped to wear when I fastened the necklace I had made for her. Custom gold, heart charm engraved with, "Always your mom." I imagined whispering, "You'll always be my baby," as I clasped it around her neck. But that moment never came. When she made that call, I didn't cry. Not right away. I stood in the kitchen like I might float off the earth if I didn't grip the table. The coffee went cold in the pot. The necklace sat wrapped in velvet in the center of the table, like a ghost of a celebration. And I waited, staring at the clock like time would reverse if I watched it hard enough. It didn't. Later that night, I lay on the couch in the same dress. It didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like I was playing dress-up in someone else's life. People think grief is loud, screaming, sobbing, breaking plates. But sometimes grief just looks like a woman in a blush dress, motionless in her living room, while the pot on the stove hisses into silence. I didn't call her. I didn't beg. But God, I wanted to. I curled around a blanket that smelled like lavender and the ghost of our old Saturday mornings. That's when I realized she hadn't just uninvited me from her wedding. She had erased me from her life. And the scariest part was how quiet that erasure was.
It was a Thursday when the group chat screenshots arrived. Not from Kara, not from Dan, from a mutual friend, Rachel, someone who still had enough kindness left to feel uncomfortable. "Thought you should see this," her message said. No emojis, just a series of blurry screen caps from a chat titled Bride Squad. I should have stopped after the first one. At first, it was harmless. Photos of the bridesmaids in matching sage green dresses, snapshots of the venue, talk about candle arrangements and mason jar cocktails. Then someone, Lila, I think, typed, "Has anyone warned the mom? Like, don't wear white, don't make a speech, don't cry too loud." There were laughing emojis, flame emojis. Then someone else said, "Kara's mom is giving major the emotional support vampire vibes. Watch out, or she'll make the ceremony about her childhood trauma." I couldn't breathe. I felt the blood leave my face, but I kept scrolling. You always keep scrolling, don't you? And then came the one that gutted me. It was Kara, my daughter. She means well, but it's always too much. Every text turns into a guilt trip. I can't. I don't have the energy. That was her. That was how she explained me to her closest friends. Not she's trying, not she raised me alone, not even we're complicated, just too much can't. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we used to do homework and make hand turkeys out of construction paper, the same one where I kept the wedding notebook. And I stared at those screenshots like they were funeral photos. The gift box was still there, still tied with the ribbon, still unopened. I didn't cry. Instead, I deleted the entire thread, every message, every screenshot. I even archived Rachel's name. It felt like self-preservation, even if it was really just cowardice. 2 days later, I went to brunch with Dan's family. Kara had invited me weeks ago, back when I thought I still had a role. It was at a little cafe in downtown Portland, all reclaimed wood and overpriced toast. I wore a blue blouse Kara once complimented, curled my hair, practiced my smile. They were already seated when I arrived. Dan stood to greet me. Kara didn't. "Mom," she said, polite but flat. "You made it." We ordered. I asked if they had vegetarian options. Dan's mom, Barbara, raised an eyebrow and muttered, "Another one of those, huh?" Kara laughed. Not cruel, just complicit. But she didn't defend me. Then I pulled out a florist pamphlet. One of my former students had started her own business. "Thought maybe you'd like these," I said, handing it over. "We've got it covered," she said quickly. It's already finalized." She didn't even look. Just like that, the last little thread between us frayed. I tucked the pamphlet back into my purse like it was a love letter I'd never send. That night, I poured a glass of wine and sat alone on the back porch. The air was thick with summer, and the cicadas sang like nothing had changed. But everything had. My daughter had turned me into a cautionary tale, and worse, I started to believe them. The day of the wedding, I baked a cake. 3 tiers, chocolate raspberry, Kara's favorite. I even added that vanilla almond glaze she always used to lick off the spoon as a kid. It was ridiculous, I know. She wasn't coming, I wasn't going. But baking it made me feel close to her. Even if it was a delusion. I piped little pink blossoms along the edges, lit a candle next to it, set the table with 2 plates, even though I'd be the only one sitting there, even though I wasn't even sure I could eat. I thought maybe I'd light the candle, cut a small slice, and whisper something into the quiet. Something like, "I love you anyway." Something like,
I'm still here. But when I opened my phone and saw the wedding photos on Instagram, I froze. There she was, Kara, in her dress. White satin, simple, elegant. Her smile was breathtaking. Her eyes looked like mine, except she wasn't looking at me. And there, in one of the photos, was Barbara, Dan's mother. Arm around Kara's waist, cheeks pressed together, captioned, "Couldn't have done it without my second mom. Pink heart." Second mom. It was that line that did it. Not the flowers, not the rings, not the cake. That line felt like being erased with a Sharpie, permanent, smug, and irreversible. I didn't cry. I stood, opened the trash can, and shoved the entire cake inside. No slice, no bite, no ceremony. Just gone. Then I sat on the floor beside the trash can, back against the cold cabinet, knees pulled in, arms wrapped around my ribs like I was trying to keep myself from spilling out. And I broke. Not the movie kind of sobbing, not the delicate kind, the real kind. The ugly, loud, full-bodied kind that makes your chest feel like it's collapsing. Because here's the thing no one tells you about this kind of grief. It isn't loud until it is. It builds in silence, in empty rooms, in unanswered texts, in gift boxes still tied with ribbons, and then it explodes, usually on a random Saturday in a perfectly clean kitchen that now feels haunted. I stayed there for hours. At some point, the candle burned down to a stub. My throat was raw. My eyes stung. My nose was red and useless. I looked up at the clock. It was 11:17 p.m. The ceremony would have been over. The first dance done, cake sliced, vows exchanged, and I had missed it all. Not because I was late, but because I wasn't wanted. Eventually, I crawled into bed without brushing my teeth, without changing. I pulled the covers over my head and whispered, "You'll always be my baby," into the darkness. And then I added something I hadn't dared say out loud until then. But I don't know if I'm still your mom. The next morning, I woke up with dried tears on my face and a pressure in my chest that felt like someone had sat on it all night. The house was still, too still. I didn't check social media. I didn't make coffee. I just stared at the ceiling and asked myself the question no mother ever wants to face. If I'm not her mom anymore, then who am I? That question followed me for days, like smoke clinging to my clothes, like static behind my eyes. And then came a lifeline I hadn't expected, Mara. We taught together for over a decade, shared cafeteria duty horror stories, graded essays over lukewarm coffee, laughed when a fifth grader asked if Shakespeare had an Instagram. She bumped into me outside the Beaverton Library. I was dropping off a book on autopilot, still wearing the same cardigan from 2 days before. "Meredith," she said, "you okay?" I gave the worst answer in the world. "Yeah, just tired." She didn't believe me. but she let it go. As we chatted, she mentioned the school district needed reading tutors. Just part-time, she said, but the kids could really use someone like you. Someone like me. That phrase lodged in my chest like a soft stone. Then came a lifeline I hadn't expected. Mara. We'd taught together for over a decade, shared cafeteria duty horror stories, graded essays over lukewarm coffee, laughed when a fifth grader asked if Shakespeare had an Instagram. She bumped into me outside the Beaverton Library. I was dropping off a book on autopilot, still wearing the same cardigan from 2 days before. "Meredith," she said, "you okay?" I gave the worst answer in the world. "Yeah, just tired." She didn't believe me, but she let it go. As we chatted, she mentioned the school district needed reading tutors. Just part-time, she said, but the kids could really use someone like you. Someone like me. That phrase lodged in my chest like a soft stone. Later that night, I pulled out my old resume, dusted it off, updated my references, didn't tell anyone. Just quietly reminded myself I still had something to give. And then, one ordinary Friday night, I lit a lavender candle, poured myself a cup of tea, opened my journal, and wrote, "I may not have a seat at her table, but damn it, I'm setting mine." It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even healing. It was breath. Mine. It was a Sunday morning when I saw the car. Old Subaru, parked just across the street. Engine off, windows fogging slightly from the inside. I watched it from my kitchen window as I rinsed out a mug. At first, I thought it was a neighbor's kid taking a phone call or someone lost. But 15 minutes passed, and the door finally opened. It was Dan. No jacket, just a blue button-down, sleeves rolled to the elbows. His hair was messy, like he'd been running his hands through it for miles. He looked young and exhausted. I opened the door before he could knock. "Can we talk?" he said. No small talk, no smile, just that. I stepped aside. We sat at the same kitchen table where the gift box had gathered dust and guilt. It was still there. I hadn't touched it. Dan looked around like the room held secrets he wasn't ready for. He said, "She didn't open the gift. The box? It was under her shoes in the back seat. She forgot about it." I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. He said, "I opened it. I know that wasn't my place, but he broke off, then added, "I needed to know what was inside." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. The litter, my handwriting, slanted and careful. I hadn't seen it in weeks. Seeing it in his hands felt like looking at a version of myself I'd sealed away. He said, "That letter, it wasn't guilt. It wasn't manipulation. It was just love, unfiltered." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. He continued, "She told me you'd make the wedding about you, that you'd cry, wear something weird, embarrass her somehow. And you believed her." I said, not with bitterness, just fact. He nodded. He said, "I did. I didn't know any better. But she's been different since the wedding. Distant, disconnected. It's like she thought pushing you out would solve something in her, but it didn't." The kettle clicked off behind me. I stood, poured us both tea, set his mug down. I said quietly, "She once told me she'd never get married
unless I walked her down the aisle. Dan looked up, startled. He said, "She said that?" I nodded. She was 10. We were watching some soppy rom-com. She said, "If I ever get married, it's just you and me down the aisle." He rubbed his hands over his face. He said, "I thought keeping the peace meant staying out of it, but peace without truth isn't peace at all. It's just quiet betrayal." The room hummed with everything we weren't saying. Then he slid something else across the table. A handwritten note, his own, scrawled, raw, smudged in the corner like he'd folded it with shaky fingers. He said, "If you ever want to read it, no pressure." He stood, lingered at the doorway, and turned back one more time. He said, "If I'd known what I know now, you'd have had the first seat." I looked at him, the boy who loved my daughter, the man who watched her slip away. I said, I didn't need a seat. I just needed to be seen.
The letter came 3 days later, tucked inside a plain white envelope. No return address, just my name, written in the careful loops I hadn't seen since high school report cards. Meredith Hayes. Not Mom, not even Mama, like she used to say when she was sleepy or sick. Just formal, distant, but undeniably hers. I didn't open it right away. I made tea, sat at the table, let the sunlight spill across the wood in slow-moving rectangles. I held the envelope like it might bite me, or maybe disappear if I looked at it too long. And then, slowly, carefully, I opened it. The paper was lined, torn from a spiral notebook, a small tear at the top, like she'd ripped it out in frustration. It was short, less than a page, but I read it like it was scripture. "Mom, I don't know how to start this. I've rewritten it 6 times. I keep thinking about what you'd want me to say, and I don't even know what that is. But I hurt you. I see that now. I shut you out of something that should have been ours. I did it because I was scared, not of you, of me, of falling short, of being seen too clearly. You've always been strong, unshakable. I felt like I had to match that, and I didn't know how, so I built distance and called it independence. Dan told me about the letter, about the necklace. I haven't opened the box yet, but I will. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. Love, Cara." I didn't cry, not like before. These tears were different, quiet, reverent, the kind you cry when you've been holding your breath too long and finally exhale. I folded the letter and laid it beside the velvet box. This time, I didn't tuck either away. I left them out, in the open, in the light. It didn't feel like closure, not yet, but it felt like a hinge, a door creaking open, an offering of truth without strings. That afternoon, I went for a walk. The air was sharp with October, leaves crisping underfoot. Every house smelled like cinnamon and wood smoke and memories. I passed a bookstore, the same one where I'd bought the wedding planning notebook. Inside, I found a blank journal, hardback, forest green, with gold corners and pages that begged for a story. I bought it, carried it home like treasure. That night, I opened it to page 1 and wrote, "She said she sees it now. I think I see her too.
I didn't know what would come next. Would she call? Would she visit? Would she disappear again? But for the first time, I wasn't clinging to hope like a life raft. I was holding it gently, like a feather in my palm. I couldn't control what Cara would do with her truth, but I could choose what to do with mine. And mine said, "You were never the villain. You were just the mother."
She texted me 4 days after the letter. Coffee sometime? Powell's Cafe? No pressure, just if you want. No emojis, no awkward exclamations, just 7 words that felt like a hand held out in the dark. I stared at my phone for a full hour before I replied. Yes, I'd like that. I didn't ask for details, didn't pepper her with anxious mom questions like I used to. What day? What time? Will Dan be there? No, I waited, because this time she had to drive the next mile. Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m., Powell's Books, downtown Portland. I arrived 10 minutes early, of course. I wandered the aisles for a bit, pressed my fingers along the spines like I was blessing them. I found myself in the parenting section. Didn't linger. The cafe still smelled like cinnamon and over-roasted espresso. Same chipped mugs, same scratchy jazz playlist humming through old speakers. I picked the table by the window, ordered 2 coffees, hers with extra caramel, just in case she hadn't changed. And then there she was, Cara. She wore a green scarf I didn't recognize and an expression I did. Nervous, like she wasn't sure if she was welcome, like she might bolt. I stood. "Hi," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. The silence between us felt padded, like we were both bracing for impact. "I didn't know if you'd say yes," she admitted. "I didn't know if you'd ask." We both smiled, small and wary. "I ordered you the usual," I said. She picked up the mug, sipped. "Still good." Another silence. But this one wasn't heavy, just cautious, like a bridge still under construction. "I read the letter again," she said, not meeting my eyes. "The one in the box." I didn't move, just listened. "She cried," she continued, "more than I expected. Not just because of what you wrote, because I realized how long it's been since I saw you." Her voice cracked there. "Not as mom," she said, "but as Meredith." That landed somewhere deep inside me. "You don't owe me anything," I said quietly. "Not an apology, not an explanation. This isn't a courtroom. There's no sentence I need from you." "I'm not ready to talk about everything," she said. "That's okay. But I want to start somewhere." I nodded. And then she said it, the thing that made all of this real. "Can we start with a memory?" I blinked. She reached into her bag, pulled out an old photo. Us on Cannon Beach. She was 6, missing a front tooth, wrapped in a blue towel with ducks on it. I had sunglasses too big for my face and seaweed in my hair. We were laughing like we invented joy. She laughed harder, but took a quick breath after that. "I want to remember who we were before all the noise," she said. I touched the photo. My thumb brushed her tiny face. "I remember that day," I whispered. "You made a sandcastle. The tide took it. You sobbed like the ocean betrayed you." She laughed, hand to her mouth. I smiled. "I told you, even if the castle washes away, you'll always know how to build it again." She went quiet,
then nodded. "I'm ready to rebuild," she said. And this time, she didn't mean sand.
A week later, we met at Laurelhurst Park. Kara's idea. "Let's walk," she texted. No agenda, just steps. The morning was overcast, the kind of Pacific Northwest gray that somehow softens the world. Leaves floated on the lake like lost letters. A faint breeze curled around us, tugging at loose strands of her hair. We didn't talk much at first, just walked. Our feet crunched over gravel. Ducks quacked like they were in on some private joke. A dog passed us wearing a puffer vest. We both smiled, quietly. It felt safe, like walking beside someone who was slowly becoming real to you again. Then, just past the weeping willow near the east bench, she stopped. She reached into the pocket of her coat and pulled out something small, wrapped in a cloth. Her hands were shaking. "I've been carrying this around for weeks," she said. "I wasn't ready, but I think I am now." She unwrapped the necklace. My necklace. The one I had custom made. My mother's ring melted into the charm. "Always your mom" engraved on one side, and a single forget-me-not etched on the back. It glinted like fire in the morning mist. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. "Can you?" she asked. I stepped forward, fingers trembling. I fastened the clasp at the back of her neck, like I'd imagined doing on her wedding day, except this time she chose to be here. The charm settled just above her heart. "Do you remember how you used to come into my room during thunderstorms and crawl into bed? You'd whisper, 'Just until it passes.'" She nodded, tears tracking silently down her cheeks. "I was always waiting for you to say that again, but I think I was the one who needed it this time." We sat on the bench. No rush, no questions. She touched the pendant, then said, "I didn't wear it until I felt like I could carry what it means." "And now?" "I'm still scared," she admitted, "but it's a different kind of fear. Not the kind that keeps you running, the kind that tells you this matters." Her voice dropped. "I lost you, Mom. And not just during the wedding, long before that. I kept pulling away, testing the line between us to see if it would snap." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because I thought if I broke it myself, it would hurt less if you ever stopped loving me." The breath caught in my throat. "Kara," I said, "you could have walked 1,000 miles and the line would still be there. It might stretch, it might fray, but it doesn't break." She closed her eyes. Let that sink in. And then she said something I'll never forget. "I thought independence meant being alone. Now I think it means choosing who you let walk beside you." The wind picked up. We pulled our coats tighter, but neither of us moved. We stayed on that bench until our fingers were numb and our hearts a little less so. We didn't make a big thing of Christmas. No flights, no fancy table settings, no orchestrated Hallmark moment. Just us, 2 women, 2 mugs, a warm kitchen, and a playlist full of Ella Fitzgerald. Kara showed up at 10 a.m., sharp, holding a bakery bag like it contained sacred relics. "Still warm," she said, lifting out 2 cinnamon rolls the size of softballs. "Extra glaze, obviously." I laughed and took one. "You remembered." She grinned, but it faded into something gentler. I remember a lot more than I let on. We sat at the kitchen table, my kitchen table, for the first time in nearly a year. It looked the same, but everything felt different. Lighter, maybe, or just less haunted.
She spotted the scrapbook sitting on the counter, the one we'd started building a few weeks back after I sent her the box of old photos, drawings, tiny memories I thought she'd forgotten. "You still working on that?" she asked. I nodded. "Page 15 is blank. I'm waiting." "For what?" "For whatever comes next." She didn't reply right away, just sipped her coffee and stared out the window at the rose bushes clinging to the frost. After breakfast, we moved to the living room, curled up with a quilt, each of us on our own end of the couch. I put on a record, the old one we used to dance to in our socks when she was little. Kara closed her eyes. "This song still makes me feel 6. That's about how old I feel when I hear it, except with more back pain." She laughed, really laughed. No filter, no caution. We watched a movie, something silly with talking dogs. She leaned her head against my shoulder halfway through. I didn't breathe for a minute. Just let the warmth of her skin sink in like sunlight after a long storm. Later, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the carpet, she reached into her tote and pulled out a small wrapped gift. She said, "I saw this and thought of you." Inside was a ceramic mug, white, hand-painted, with a quote in loopy gold script. "Even when the castle washes away, you still know how to build." I blinked fast. She didn't look at me, just said, "I remember you said that when mine washed away. I was 5. I cried so hard I almost threw sand at the ocean." "I remember," I whispered. "I never forgot." She looked up. Neither did I. We didn't talk about the wedding, not directly. There wasn't a speech, no scene, but she did ask later as we washed dishes, "Do you think we'll ever be the way we were?" I paused, setting down a plate. "No," I said gently, "but maybe that's a good thing." She nodded. "Yeah, I think I'd rather be new." That night, after she left, I lit a candle, the same lavender one I used to burn when I thought she was gone forever. Only this time, the flame didn't feel like mourning. It felt like gratitude, like presence, like something quietly, defiantly alive. The seasons shifted again. Spring crept into the edges of the days, longer light, softer mornings, birds testing their voices in the still cold air. I started gardening again, digging my hands into the earth like I was planting more than basil or tulips, like I was planting proof that things could come back. Kara stopped by more often, sometimes just to drop off groceries, sometimes to sit in comfortable silence. Once she brought her laptop and sat across from me at the table while I graded essays. We didn't say much, but I caught her smiling when I muttered run-on sentence under my breath. It felt like life. Not a movie, not a miracle, just life. One Sunday, she showed up wearing the necklace, not tucked under a sweater like before, out in the open, the heart-shaped charm catching the sun through the window. She saw me notice and smiled. "It feels lighter now." Later that week, she joined me at the tutoring center, not as a guest, just to observe. But one of the kids, a shy second grader named Lily, was struggling to sound out extraordinary. Kara knelt beside her. "You know what that word means?" she asked, pointing. "It means something rare, something really special." Lily beamed, and I stood there in the hallway watching my daughter pass on the kind of tenderness I once gave her. That night, I wrote in my journal, "She carries it forward, even the parts she tried to leave behind." We don't talk about everything, not yet. Some days the silence still stretches between us like a scar, but it's no longer painful, just a part of us, just proof that we've healed around it. One afternoon we were walking around the lake again. The wind was gentle, Dogs barked in the distance. She stopped by a bench, pulled something from her bag. A photo. Not one of us at the beach or on Christmas. It was her on her wedding day. Alone. Not posed. Just her standing with her back half turned, looking off into the trees. She said, "I didn't share this one, but I look at it a lot." She flipped it over. On the back, she'd written, "A day that was supposed to mean something else, but now means the beginning of coming back." I took the photo, tucked it into the scrapbook. Page 15. No caption needed. Later, as I sat on the porch, watching the sun settle between the trees, I thought about the question people always ask. Did she ever apologize? Yes. And no. She never gave me a long speech, never begged, but she came back. Slowly, softly, truly. And sometimes the only apology that matters is someone choosing to stay. I look at her now, not just as my daughter, but as Kara, a woman in her own becoming. And I see myself too. Not just mom, but Meredith, a woman who was never truly lost, only waiting for her voice to echo back through the fog. We didn't go back. We went forward. Have you ever been written out of someone's story? Someone you helped build? That's what this journey has been. A story about love, absence, and return. Not to what was, but to what could be. My daughter didn't come back with flowers or fanfare. She came back with small truths. A coffee, a memory, a necklace she finally wore. Sometimes rebuilding isn't about fixing everything. It's about choosing to show up again, together. If any part of this story touched you, I'd love to hear yours in the comments. Have you ever rebuilt a bond that felt broken beyond repair? Like, subscribe, or share this with someone who might need to know that reconciliation is messy, but possible. Love stretches, love stays, and sometimes love comes back home.